Professor Anil Gupta was also supposed to be in this panel. He was there in the morning today, but he has some, urgent meeting to kind of, attend to. We also have Ms. Saina Ghosh, who will help us in translating what Ms. Savitri will be saying. She will be speaking in Odisha, Odia. Aye, ma'am. So we will start with the session. It's my pleasure to kind of, introduce Mr. Senthil Kumaran, who is Program Head Platforms and Application at Reliance Foundation. Mr. Senthil has more than 3 decades of experience in the area of ICT-enabled development activities and disaster management, including relief operations. He has pioneered several technological innovations, particularly in the space of risk communication and disaster management, and it's always a delight to hear from him. Senthil sir, for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Animesh. Good noon, everyone. I'm not part of this panelist. I just sharing the inputs about introduction of that joint publication of the Spare India and Reliance Foundation is about that stronger together compendium of stories of courage and resilience during disasters. You know about that not only related to the climate change, the various aspects day by day that is a various kind of disaster are increasing in India. This also mentioned recent one of the report by the Professor Anil Gupta, unfortunately is not here. And the GIE said they put in that detailed summary about that how year by year that the increasing disaster. One of the gentlemen also morning, the first session is explain about that how much $1 billion need about that various disasters. Actually, the government of India also emphasized about that 10-point agenda, particularly about that this about community-based disaster risk reduction. Because the last speaker of that Gujarat IAG also mentioned about that PDNA for that the Sarkari and about that JDNA, how for the humanitarian thing. So it's about that, they're also mentioned about that Prime Minister agenda about that underscores is about that how the community-based disaster risk reduction is important. Actually, the publication jointly prepared by the Spare India Network as well as about the Reliance Foundation is about the underscores about this case studies. The case studies is come from that across India from the different networks and different people, how they effectively providing about that community-based disaster risk reduction. Two of that community members are here. One Ajindar from Tripura, from that Orissa, maybe they can share about that their experiences. Actually, this publication is about that covering the maybe about the different kind of inspiring stories, is including about that how the community emergency fund after Cyclone Fani they created, efforts during the COVID-19 pandemic, and how the women leaders who are building trust and resilience with their communities. The stories also highlight innovative approaches to disaster preparedness, response, recovery developed by local communities. The stories also showcase the expertise of leveraging community health workers. That's very important about that during after the disaster, and grassroots engagement to create flood preparedness plans, mobilizing women to build collective action and disaster preparedness, focusing on child rights and youth mobilization for community resilience. I think most of them have that this publication I saw in that display table also. Maybe you can go through that. I'm only providing the keywords. Maybe you can also go through the each of the case studies which cover about that detailed way in this one. Basically, this is emphasizing about the building the capacity of the community leaders in disaster preparedness and response through the training programs, because there is a discussion about that also is about that how that need important about the COBO tool for the training and need about that during that emergency time, how that it will be utilized about that important way. So this about that, and another thing is about that this publication is giving that a lot of valuable lessons. One for the building local resilience through the continuous training, multi-stakeholder partnerships, and local leadership that strengthen the response efforts and raising awareness about the disaster risk and preparedness. These successful approaches could be replicated and adopted by the other communities facing similar challenges I encouraging all of you to go through that, the publication. It also available in the Reliance Foundation website. You can download it. And about that, maybe our the panelists, they can provide about that more insights about the community-based disaster risk reduction based on the expertise in the resilience and sustainability strategies, working across different stakeholders, disaster risk reduction, people management, and WASH expertise, and also data analysis also. Before I conclude, I have the two requests. One for that, after reading this Stronger Together, maybe you can also share with that more stories, such stories to that Spare India network. Maybe we can build about that knowledge sharing repository to build a community resilience in India, not only the particular location in the different aspects. Another one is about that more than a decade, Reliance Foundation is involving about the dissemination of the early warning advisories. It's not only for the early warning advisories, we are also having about the predictive analysis bit, impact-based forecasting and weather services. It's about including about various campaigning of the data, how much maybe about that livestock may be affected, or maybe about how many thatched houses may be affected. Even at the level of about that, maybe for the 3-4 days about that during that cyclone, maybe many of the people in the temporary shelters, maybe at that time is about what kind of maybe about that approximately is about that newborn babies will maybe born. So what kind of preparatory work they will need about that, maybe ambulance services, bed services, and etc. Our prediction is about that more than 97 to 98, because maybe we predict about that 384, maybe about that, sometimes about that 400, or maybe sometimes about the 360. So we discussed a lot about that. We even morning, they discussed about that Azure, sorry, about that Amazon, Digital India, etc. We also having the web scraping tool, because you asked about that information collation, maybe about various media. Many people, they are putting about the Facebook, social media, and other things. This also one kind of SITREP or maybe other kind of things. We have about that web scraping tool. So in the different languages, bring about that, what is that after the disaster, it will come. We also have that about that directly get the inputs from the server of that India Meteorological Department and INCAIS about the various early warning services. We also have that WhatsApp platform is about that you can put about any number of people and the segregation wise and etc. We also have the various other digital tools. Maybe about that any of your IAG and your network and your communities would like to maybe get this kind of the early warning advisories, particularly about that life saving, or maybe about the livelihood. Maybe you can approach Dr. Vikrant and Nupur. We can happy to extend that kind of services. Maybe after the meeting, Vikrant, we also provide about that various insights discussed about that. We have most all the things we have the solutions. We'll happy to share. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for that introduction on the publication. We have yeah. We'll be unveiling the publication here. I would request everyone to please stand, and we can have a photograph with the publication. You can just unveil it. Thank you. We also have a short video on this publication.
India stands resilient with ordinary people displaying extraordinary courage. Meet Vinod, Damayanti, Shraddhanjali, Satyavati, and many others. Stories of collective action that makes communities resilient. Reliance Foundation and Sphere India launch Stronger Together, a compendium of stories of courage and resilience during disasters. India.
Thank you. So this publication can also be downloaded from Reliance Foundation website. Now the most exciting part is to listen from the community. We have two community representatives here with us today, and of course there are many stories in the compendium. You can read more about it, but today we have with us Mr. Sudeep Mojumdar. He's from Tripura. He's managing director of Bagma Farmer Producer Company. And he has been working towards improving condition of farmers and has become a backbone of his community for nearly 2 decades. In 2005, he helped set up a Gram Vikas Farmers Club in line with NABARD guidelines. And this eventually became Bagma FPC. The FPC has 300 odd members with 45 women members and is currently working in 28 blocks. Soon after this endeavor started in 2007, he also became a member of the voluntary humanitarian organization, the Indian Red Cross Society, and supported district administration in various training programs. During COVID-19 2020, his region started facing another disaster, and that was the lumpy skin disease virus outbreak. So let us hear the story from the man himself on how he dealt with the double disaster. Mr. Mojumdar, over to you.
नमस्ते, सबको नमस्कार। मैं नॉर्थ ईस्टर्न स्टेट त्रिपुरा से। हम लोग एक्चुअली एक फार्मर्स ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में काम करते हो। पहले हम लोग फार्मर्स लैब बनाया था 2005 में, और 2019 में कंपनी एक्ट में, 2013 एक्ट में हम लोग नाबार्ड और रिजर्व बैंक का साथ हम लोग पूरा स्टेट में काम कर रहे हो। और मिल्क, हनी, बेम्बो, आर्टिजन, हैंडीक्राफ्ट, इसके ऊपर हम लोग फार्मर्स को सपोर्ट कर रहे हो। और रिलायंस फाउंडेशन हमारा पास हम लोगों को साथ ये जो काम एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर में, उसको हम लोग छोटा छोटा प्रोग्राम त्रिपुरा में करता था, जैसे फोन कॉलिंग में, वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंस में, और प्लांट हेल्थ कैंप, एनिमल हेल्थ कैंप, इस टाइप का छोटा छोटा काम पहले से रिलायंस के साथ हमारा चल रहा था। पेंडेमिक का सीजन टाइम में हम लोगों को 5000 मार्क्स दिया था, हम लोग फार्मर को, रूरल कम्युनिटी को डिस्ट्रीब्यूट किया था। उसी टाइम में हमारे यहाँ पर हम लोग एक्चुअली मिल्क प्रोक्योरमेंट करता था, तो फार्मर, डायरी फार्मर के साथ हमारा बहुत अच्छा रिलेशन है। तो उस फार्मर को जो मेन इनकम सोर्स से मिल्क, वो एनिमल को लंपी स्किन डिजीज हुआ था। तो उस टाइम में हम लोग डिपार्टमेंट का आदमी भी उस टाइम में नहीं फुल पेज में काम कर रहा था। तो हम लोग क्या करेंगे, अमित सर को फोन किया था कलकत्ता में, और रिलायंस फाउंडेशन का दिव्यकांत नायक सर को फोन किया था। तो सर ने इमीडिएट हमको बोला, जो भी करना है तुम करो, हम लोग पूरा सपोर्ट करेंगे। तो हम लोग क्या किया, वहाँ पर त्रिपुरा का जो मेडिसिनल शॉप है, जो होलसेल में देता है, मोहाना मेंटेराबाइज, उसका कॉन्टेक्ट नंबर दे दिया दिव्यकांत सर को। तो जितना मेडिसिन, जो दो डॉक्टर को हम लोग अरेंज किया था उस टाइम में, तो एक प्राइवेट काम कर रहा था और गवर्नमेंट डॉक्टर है। तो दोनों डॉक्टर ने को क्या क्या मेडिसिन चाहिए, वो दिव्यकांत सर को, रिलायंस फाउंडेशन को हम लोग दिया था, और इमीडिएट एक दिन में वो पूरा अरेंज करके उस शॉप को पैसा दे देते। तो हम लोग BFSL जो है लोकल कम्युनिटी को एक साथ करके, पंचायत को, और DM सर ने हमको गाड़ी का और बाइक पास दे दिया था मूवमेंट करने के लिए। तो गाँव जो टेपानिया ब्लॉक है हमारा, उस ब्लॉक में हम छोटा छोटा प्रोग्राम किया और अवेयरनेस भी किया, साथ में मेडिसिन भी दिया। तो डिजीज छोटा जो बच्चा था, बहुत मोर्टेलिटी हुआ था, और एंटीबायोटिक जो मेडिसिन दिया था, स्किन में लगाने के लिए दिया था, तो धीरे धीरे वो कम होते गया और फार्मर को बहुत फायदा हुआ। तो ये जो उस टाइम में जो सिचुएशन में जो हेल्प मिला, इसके लिए बहुत सारे फार्मर बहुत उपकृत हुआ। और ये जो काम हम लोग किया है, ये दिल्ली में आके ये पुरस्कार मिलेगा, यहाँ पर आएंगे, वो तो नहीं सोचा था। हम लोग उस टाइम में एक प्रॉब्लम था, उस प्रॉब्लम को फेस करने के लिए कहाँ से हेल्प मिलेगा, तो रिलायंस हम लोग को इतना मैंने इमीडिएट हेल्प किया, इसलिए काम हुआ। वो 4-5 दिन 1 वीक बाद होने से ज्यादा काम नहीं होता था। और स्पेयर इंडिया इस काम को हम लोग जो छोटा काम किया उसको इतना बड़ा प्लेटफॉर्म दिया, आप सब लोगों के साथ हमारा मिलने का मौका दे दिया, इसके लिए हम लोग स्पेयर इंडिया को बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूँ। और रिलायंस का जितना आदमी, रिलायंस फैमिली का फाउंडेशन का अमित सर, दिव्यकांत सर, पोलिमेश सर, जिन लोग हम लोग क्लोजली सपोर्ट किया, एक मेल में पूरा फंड रिलीज किया, जो किया है इसके लिए बहुत हेल्प मिला है। और उस टाइम में जो मीटिंग नहीं कर सकता था, उस टाइम में कलकत्ता से बहुत एक्सपर्ट को हम लोगों को साथ जुड़ के फिशरीज सेक्टर में, एनिमल सेक्टर में और भी जितना लाइवलीहुड सेक्टर में बहुत हेल्प किया। तो थैंक यू सबको।
Thank you, thank you. So basically, I mean, that is particularly in COVID context when it was difficult for, people to even reach out to that places. It is because of these community heroes who, emerged from the last mile to say and step up that, this is a situation and we are there to work for. I think that really makes a difference, right? So we have another story. Miss K. Satyavati. ये कोस्टल उड़ीसा से हैं, पेंटा काटा उड़ीसा में एक जगह है, वहाँ से हैं। पोस्ट फोनी साइक्लोन इन्होंने अपने कम्युनिटी में काफ़ी काम किया, क्योंकि एक एक्नॉलेज मतलब एक रियलाइजेशन इनको ये था कि बाहर से जो संस्थाएं आती हैं उनके मदद जो है वो पहुंचने में थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा। सो हमें अपने बल पे कुछ करना है, कम्युनिटी को एक साथ खड़े होकर के काम करना है। तो इन्होंने कुछ 650 से ज़्यादा महिलाओं को मोबिलाइज किया और उसके बाद एक साथ मिल करके दे स्टार्टेड वर्किंग ऑन कम्युनिटी पूल्ड फंड, रेजिलियंस फंड वगैरह जो है उसका गठन किया। और फिर वो आगे बढ़ करके एक महिला संघ में कन्वर्ट हुआ और उन्होंने काफ़ी काम किया है। आगे सत्यवती जी खुद बात करेंगे इस चीज़ के बारे में। वो उड़िया में ज़्यादा कंफर्टेबल हैं बात करने के लिए। हमारे साथ साइना घोष हैं जो हमें ट्रांसलेशन में मदद करेंगी। सत्यवती जी आपसे सुनेंगे।
గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ అందరికీ నా హృదయపూర్వక నమస్కారం. నాది ఒరిస్సా పూరి పెంటపాడు నుంచి మమ్మల్ని ఇక్కడికి ఢిల్లీ ఆహ్వానించినందుకు నా హృదయపూర్వక నమస్కారాలు మీ అందరికీ. మై నామ్ కొవ్వూరు సత్యవతి. हमें वेज 50 पनीर बेसी कष्ट होची 5 दिन हमको के खावा को नहीं पीवा को नहीं किसी बेसी टेंशन पिला मैंने सब बेसी हैरान होची 5 दिन रास्ता कोलेनी समस्त पड़िला के आसीनी आमे सांगर होची तेलुगु कोची नहीं ओडिया जानी नहीं टिकट 635 మంది మేము అయితే 10 వేసి 20 వేసి డబ్బులు ఎత్తుకొని బ్యాంక్లోని అకౌంట్ చేసుకున్నాం అన్నమాట అందరూను. అవి అందులో అందరూ కూర్చొని మనకి ఏ సాయం రాలేదు, గవర్నమెంట్ కానీ ఏ సంస్థ కానీ ఎవరో ఏ సాయం అందించలేదు కాబట్టి మన అందులో డబ్బులు తీసుకొని అందరూ కూర్చొని మనకి ఎక్కడి నుంచి సాయం రాలేదు, అంతా పడిపోయింది, ఎవరో రావడానికి అవ్వలేదు అని మేమే వంటలు తయారు చేసుకొని 5 రోజులు ఆ గ్రూప్లో డబ్బులు తీసుకొని చేసుకున్నాం. అందరూ కూర్చొని మళ్ళీ ఆలోచించుకున్నాం. మాకు ఒడియా రాదు, చదువుకున్న వాళ్ళు తక్కువ మంది ఉన్నారు. వర్ష మేడం చదువుకుంది, ఒడియా వచ్చు, ఆవిడని కేకేసుకొని మేమందరూను ముందు మామూలుగా సంఘాలు మావి, ఇప్పుడు మహిళా మహాసంఘం కింద తయారు చేసుకొని వర్ష మేడంని నేనేమో మహిళా మహాసంఘానికి ప్రెసిడెంట్ని, మేడం ఏమో సెక్రటరీగా ఎన్నుకున్నాం అనమాట.
वो बोल रहे हैं कि सभी को नमस्कार. उनका नाम कोविद सत्यवती है. वो पेंटिकंटा में वहाँ पर ही उनका जन्म हुआ था और अभी उनका 50 उनका एज 50 है. और जब फनी आया था तो सबको पता है कि पूरी एक डिजास्टर बेस्ड एरिया है। तो जब फनी आया था तब उनका कोई हेल्प करने के लिए 5 दिन तक नहीं आया था कोई भी। यहाँ तक कि गवर्नमेंट का भी जो रिलीफ सिस्टम है वो भी नहीं आया था। तो इसीलिए वो क्या करे कि वहाँ पर सब लोग मिल के एक रेजिलेंट फंड क्रिएट किए, जिसमें कि वो 655 मेंबर हैं, जिसमें वो तकरीबन 1,30,000 ऐसे रेजिलेंट फंड क्रिएट किए। तो उसको यूज़ करने के लिए वो WDC में डिपॉजिट किए थे। और तब सीड्स और स्पंदन दोनों मिलके उनको सैनिटरी हाइजीन के ऊपर और कैसे वहाँ पर एक कुकिंग किए थे कम्युनिटी में, जो कि 3 प्लेस में हुआ था। तब वो 1 वीक तक चलता था, मतलब उनको खाना नहीं मिलता था, इसलिए स्पंदन टीम ने मिलके और सीड्स ने मिलके वहाँ पर कुकिंग किया। तो ऐसे ही उनको कुछ मदद मिला, इसीलिए वो रेजिडेंट फंड क्रिएट करने के लिए भी सोच रहे थे। तो उसके दौरान वो लोग रेजिडेंट फंड के लिए आगे बढ़े।
తర్వాత ఇప్పుడు మా మహిళా మహాసంఘం ముందు నెంబర్స్ 655. ఇప్పుడు వారాన్ని 1210కి ఎక్కువ అనమాట. 1210 మందికి చిల్లరు. మేము అమౌంట్ అకౌంట్ చేసుకుని 2,40,40,000 చిల్లర చేసుకున్నాం అనమాట. నేను టైలరింగ్ చేస్తాను, మా స్వామి నేను టైలరింగ్ చేస్తాం. కాకపోతే అందరికీ ఈ స్వీట్ స్పందన వాళ్ళు చాలా సాయం చేస్తారనమాట. కరోనాలోని మేమందరూ ప్రతి ఇంటికి వెళ్ళి ఈ మేము సేవింగ్ చేసుకున్న డబ్బులే కదా, అందులో కొంత డబ్బులు తీసి స్వీట్ స్పందన వాళ్ళు కొద్దిగా పంపారు. మేము ఆ డబ్బులు తీసి ఇంటింటికి వెళ్ళి డోర్కి వెళ్ళి కరోనాలో ఎలాగ హ్యాండ్ వాష్ చేసుకోవాలా, డెటాల్తో శుభ్రం చేసుకోవాలి, మన ఇంటి పరివారం శుభ్రం చేసుకోవాలి అని ఇంటింటికి ప్రతి ఇంటికి డోర్కి వెళ్ళి ప్రతి ఒక్కరికి శుభ్రం చెప్పేవాళ్ళు.
जब कोरोना आया था तब स्पंदन एंड सीड्स ने उनको वो जो हाइजीन के ऊपर है, हैंड वॉश करना हो गया और ब्लीचिंग वगैरह, ये सब प्रत्येक घर में जा जा के ये लोग उनको बताते थे, उनको सिखाया गया था। तो वो जाके उन सभी लोगों को बोलते थे, क्योंकि ये लोग एक्चुअली ये लोग माइग्रेंट है। पिसोवो कम्युनिटी में ये क्या है ना, उनका भाषा तेलुगु है, तो इसीलिए और ओडिया में कोई समझ में भी नहीं आता था। तो इसलिए उनको मदद भी नहीं मिलता था इतना, इसलिए सीड्स और स्पंदन मिलके दोनों उनको ट्रेनिंग दिए कि कैसे वो कोविड के सामना करें और हर घर में जाके उनको हेल्प करें।
100 మంది 100 ఫ్యామిలీ 100 ఫ్యామిలీకి వాటర్ ప్రాబ్లం, వర్షారే వాటర్ ప్రాబ్లం. 100 మందికి ఒక టీవీలు, అందరూ అదే వాడుతున్నాం.
आज के डेट पे भी वो बोल रहे हैं कि आज के डेट में भी उनके कम्युनिटी में एक हैंडपंप है, मतलब वहाँ का 60 हैमलेट है, तो एक एक हैमलेट में एक एक हैंडपंप है और एक हैंडपंप के ऊपर 100 फैमिली मेंबर डिपेंड करते हैं। तो वो भी अभी भी प्रॉब्लम है, कोई भी गवर्नमेंट का सपोर्ट भी नहीं मिल रहा है। मतलब म्युनिसिपैलिटी का पानी आता है लेकिन वो इतना अच्छा भी नहीं आता है, कहीं पर अगर खुदाई हो तो वो पानी भी आता है तो वो पी नहीं सकते वो पानी।
తర్వాత మాకు స్పందన వాళ్ళు కరెంట్ అది పోతే చాలా ఇబ్బంది అయిపోతుంది. నేను టైలరింగ్ చేస్తాను కదా, చాలా ఇబ్బంది అయిపోయింది అనమాట. ఇప్పుడు మాకి సోలార్ ఇచ్చారు, మిషన్ కుట్టుకోవడానికి అవుతుంది. మాకి సదుపాయం బాగుంటుంది, లైట్లు వెళ్తున్నాయి, మిషన్ కుట్టుకుంటున్నాం, ఫ్యాన్ అవుతుంది. ఒకసారి కట్టకంట 17 మందికి సోలార్ ఇప్పించాం. నెలకి ఒక 2,000 లెక్కని, ఒకసారి కట్టాలంటే అమౌంట్ కట్టలేము కదా అని 2,000 లెక్కని కట్టమని 10,000కి సోలార్ ఇచ్చావు స్పందన ద్వారా.
तो अभी फिलहाल जो 655 बोला था मैंने कि फनी के पहले रेजिडेंट फ्रंट क्रिएट किए थे, तो अभी बहुत सारे लोग इंटरेस्ट होके अभी टोटल हमारे जो SAG मेंबर है 1210 मेंबर मिलके अभी कर रहे हैं रेजिलिएंट फंड। तो अभी 2,40,000 अप्रोक्सीमेटली हुआ है, क्योंकि कोविड के टाइम वो जो रेजिलिएंट फंड फनी में वो क्रिएट किए थे वो अभी यूज कर रहे हैं उसको। तो अभी 2,40,000 हो गया है। और उसके अलावा और एक एसएजी का एक सेविंग करके वो रखते हैं, जिसमें कि अभी वो क्या है ना, वो सोलर अपने जो लाइवलीहुड के लिए यूज करें। तो अभी हम सोलर उनको दे रहे हैं, जो कि वो उस फंड से लेके लोन के बेसिस पर लेते हैं और वो फिर वहां पर डिपॉजिट कर देते हैं।
ఇప్పుడు ఎక్కువ మంది మహిళా మహాసంఘం అనగానే అందరూ కూడా మా సంఘంలోకి వస్తున్నారు. ఇప్పుడు 1,200 చిల్లరు అమౌంట్ కూడా 2,40,000 చేసుకున్నాము. ఇప్పుడు ఇంకా అలాగ ఎక్కువైపోతున్నారంట. అన్ని తర్వాత అందరూ కూడా మేము మహిళా మహాసంఘంలో చేరతాం అని అందరూ వస్తున్నారు. మాకు స్వీట్ స్పందన ద్వారాగా బాగా సాయం అందింది.
वो बोल रहे हैं कि ये सीड्स और स्पंदन मिलके जो कर रहे हैं उनके लिए, तो उनका बहुत बेनिफिट हो रहा है। तो ऐसे ही करते रहे, वो बोल रहे हैं। थैंक यू।
అందరికీ నా హృదయపూర్వక నమస్కారం.
Thank you, thank you. So with this, we close the first part of this session, which was all about these last mile heroes and their stories. Yeah. Yes, yes, of course, yeah. Of course, yeah. You would not like to miss on any of the.
Thank you. No, this is very interesting, but I would want to be able to mobilize 600 plus women to contribute to something called Resilience Fund. So, I'm really interested to know what was the pitch? What was the, okay. तो जैसे इन्होंने बोला कि 655 लोगों औरतों को इन्होंने मोबिलाइज किया और एक रेजिलियंस फंड इस्टेब्लिश किया। तो पहले तो इनकी लोकल भाषा में रेजिलियंस फंड तो नहीं होगा, कुछ और नाम होगा। रेजिलियंस से क्या समझे, मतलब इन लोगों ने जो फंड बनाया उसको इन्होंने क्या नाम दिया जिससे औरतें जुड़ पाए, वो फंड क्या है पहले तो। दूसरा, इन्होंने कैसे इतने लोगों को, क्योंकि एक होता है कि बहुत मेजर कोई प्रॉब्लम आई है, आपदा या बाढ़ आई हुई है, लोगों से कह रहे हैं खाना दे दो तो लोग दे देते हैं। पर रेजिलियंस फंड के लिए मोबिलाइज करने का इन्होंने क्या बात की, वो प्रोसेस पे थोड़ा सा अगर वो बता सकेंगे तो वो हेल्पफुल होगा बहुत।
तो वो जो रेजिडेंट फंड क्रिएट किए थे उनका नाम महिला महासंघ करके दिए थे, वो बोल रहे हैं। तो वो जो है वो पहले तो मंथली वाइज 10-10 करके एक ग्रुप में 10 मेंबर के प्लस रहते थे, मेंबर होते थे। तो वो 10-10 करके 10 रुपया करके ऐसे देते थे। तो ऐसे धीरे धीरे बढ़ बढ़ के अभी 210 करके देते हैं। जब उनका बेनिफिट होता था वो समझते थे खुद कि हाँ हमारा बेनिफिट कुछ हो रहा है उस रेजिडेंट फंड क्रिएट करके। तो उसी तरह थोड़ा थोड़ा करके वो देते थे। अभी पहले तो महीने के 10-10 करके देते थे, अभी 210 करके दे रहे हैं। और हाँ, उनका उम्मीद ऐसा था कि एक्चुअली हमारा जो चेयरपर्सन है बरसा मैडम बोल के, तो वो एक्चुअली इनके कम्युनिटी के सारे लैंग्वेज समझते थे। तो वो भरोसे पे वो 10 रुपया दे देते थे कि हाँ हमको पता है वो जरूर हमको मदद करेंगे। दैट्स वाई ट्रस्ट के लिए वो दे देते थे।
ఎవరికైనా ఏ ప్రాబ్లం వచ్చినా మా అకౌంట్లో డబ్బులు తీసుకు వాళ్ళకి సాయం చేస్తాం. అందు గురించే మేము అకౌంట్ చేస్తున్నాం. డబ్బులు సేవ్ చేసుకుంటున్నాం అనమాట. 10 20 వేసి ఎత్తుకొని బ్యాంకులోని సేవ్ చేసుకుంటున్నాం. పూరి పెంటకోటలో ఎవరికి ఏ ప్రాబ్లం వచ్చినా మేము దగ్గరుండి వాళ్ళు తీసుకెళ్ళి మేము సాయం చేస్తాం అనమాట.
एक्चुअली वहाँ का एक प्रॉब्लम है, वहाँ मतलब पेंटोकोंडा में एक हेड है। तो वो क्या है ना, इन सभी का बैंक अकाउंट में लोन नहीं हो पा रहा है, क्योंकि वो सारे लोन वो ले लेते हैं। तो यही प्रॉब्लम के दौरान वो क्या करे ना, हमारे जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में है वो उनके सपोर्ट में वहाँ पर ही जमा करते हैं। तो ट्रस्ट के वाइज, हाँ ट्रस्ट।
Thank you. Thank you. So with this, we close the first half of our discussion, which was all about the, these community heroes who are making a significant difference and Senthil sir introduced about the book, and then we heard from Satyavati ji and Mozumdar sir. So thank you, Senthil sir and Madam Apai. Now we go to the second part of our program, which is more about the panel discussion, which is Vikrant, aap idhar aa jaiye. Now, in this panel discussion, we will be deliberating about reinforcing CBDRR for risk-informed sustainable development, which is very valid. We heard from the community first, which sets a good premise on the potential which these community has in the last mile. And, so we'll try to see that how policymakers and practitioners who are working at different level, how they can kind of, bridge that kind of a connect where we learn more from the community and try to see that how they have a role in the planning process and all. So, Professor Anil Gupta, he had to leave. He was also there in the panel, but I think other speakers can fill the gap very well. So we have Mr. Sarabjit Sahota from UNICEF India. Right. So he insists on not having the introduction, but rightly so. We know Sarabjit very well in the sector. He has been contributing for many years. Now, Sarabjit, I mean, of course, you will be talking about CBDRR and how it can contribute for risk-informed sustainable development. But from my end, I think there are two perspectives which I would like to know your thoughts about. One is that if we go in last 25 years, we have seen that disaster management as a sector has significantly, I hope I'm audible, right? Has significantly evolved in India. We have shifted from using terms like disaster management to disaster risk management. Then there was a phase where emphasis was more on disaster risk reduction. And now we are talking about, resilience and risk-informed development and all. So in all those, I would say watershed years, there were emphasis on several aspects which involved community engagement process also. So what had been the learning from that, right? And, from different phases, how we have learned and shifted to a new kind of, phase, and what is the pathway for us? That is, that is one perspective. And another thing which I would like to know more from you is that how CBDRR can draw from local knowledge. Are we there yet? Is that an untapped potential and what it has to offer? So other than your general view, if you can please also comment on these two aspects. Yeah.
Thank you, Animesh, and thanks for having me here. You all are big practitioners of community-based work. So what can I tell you? I'll start with some of the challenges we are currently addressing. In the previous session, you spoke about big data. The feedback loop from the big data evaporates by the time it goes to the field. No one uses your big data in the panchayat. So the Mr. Majumdar shared his learning experience. Now, it's good to listen here in Delhi, but can the children in his school, where his children study, can they learn from him? So the first thing we're trying right now is that can we identify critical experiences of the community and then link them up with the school? So if school children can learn from people from their own community, and these could be about managing maybe resilient agricultural practices, or it might be about safety, security, etc. Agendas can be varied. But very importantly, I think we got to associate school, children, and community in one go in terms of learning. No need for me or you to go there. They can also learn from locally. Yes, of course, there is role for national level. That's the last point which you were making. Second challenge, I think, is how do I put aside my agenda and let people decide what they want to do? Yeah. And I think that's a major challenge with all of us. We all carry our agendas to the community, and it rarely happens that we allow a full spectrum programming, which is people have their own needs, and aspirations and challenges. I can only understand part of it. So planning, learning, action, all led by local people, agenda being set by local people. Of course, there can be a lens of safety, security. So if there is a water security issue, if there is a livelihood security issue, they will bring it up. But what's my role? And what's your role there? I think there are two key roles there. There are many roles we can perform. One is to facilitate. Sit on the edge of a circle. Let people sit on the circle and you sit on the edge of the circle, listening, and maybe sometimes nodding, sometimes saying, asking one or two sort of probing questions, leading questions, and then let the knowledge emerge from locally. And second piece, I think that's a very important piece, that people have their assumptions about the risk. Local people have their own assumptions about risk. As a community, as people with scientific bent of mind, we have our assumptions about the risk. Now, how do the social assumptions and the scientific assumptions come together? I think that's a role which we can play. We have to really control ourselves and not overpower communities' sort of understanding. So I think I would stop here. Maybe if there are any questions and reflections, I'll then come back. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. So next we have with us Ms. Juhi Jain. She is Deputy Director CIFA. मैडम सीफार से हैं और मैडम ने जेंडर में काफ़ी एक्सटेंसिवली काम किया है और मैम मेरा एक इंटरेस्ट ये भी था कि आप पैनल में हैं एंड you know we have been working for many years in the sector now, but when we talk about community based or community led, do we have a representation of actually all the community there, right? And I'm also talking about not only women and girls but also transgenders and all, because I've been part to kind of many forums and all, but there are many programs in DRR and other things. Transgender, I've never seen them in the common space, right? But that is, from my understanding, my perspective, that is one aspect of it. So the question here is that how inclusive this term, community based or community led, within that, where do we find women, girls and other people from other genders and their participation and all? So from your extensive experience, if you can please shed some light on that, and also some of the suggestions on what is the way forward, how we can be more inclusive in our processes.
Thank you. I thought there was this film which we were seeing first. Should we see that, or should we?
The video.
We can wait.
Oh yes, yeah. Difficult for the panelists to see the screen, but yeah.
नंबर 19 रु कहूची बालियापड़ा बस्ती मो घर होची केन्द्रापड़ा जिला आली ब्लॉक रो मु 2002 रु आसी बालियापड़ा रहूची 20-21 वर्ष धरिके मु रहिलेनी एठिकारे बहुत सुविधा असुविधा भी अछि। मो स्वामी प्राइवेट कॉन्ट्रैक्टर हिसाब रे काम करंती ଗାଁରେ ଆର୍ଥିକ ଅସୁବିଧା ଥିବାରୁ ଆମେ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱର ଆସିଲୁ। ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱର ମୋର ଗୋଟେ ପୁଅ ଗୋଟେ ଝିଅ, ଆମେ ଭଲ ପଢି ପାରି ନଥିବାରୁ ଆମ ପିଲାକୁ ଭଲ ପଢେଇବା ପାଇଁ ଏଠିକି ଆମେ ଆସିଥିଲୁ। ଯେ ଏଠି ଆସି ବହୁତ ଅସୁବିଧା, ପାଣି ଲାଇଟ୍ ରାସ୍ତାଘାଟର ବହୁତ ଅସୁବିଧା ଥିଲା, ଯାହାକି ଆମେ ଲୋକମାନେ ଯାହା ଯାହା ପାଖକୁ ଯିବା କଥା ଆମେ ବାଟ ପାଇନଥିଲୁ ଲୋକଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ପହଞ୍ଚିବା ପାଇଁ। ଯୋଉଟା କି 9ମ ଶ୍ରେଣୀ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ପଢିଥିଲି, ମୋର ଆଗକୁ ଯିବାକୁ ଇଚ୍ଛା ଥିଲା। ମୁଁ ଲୋକଙ୍କ ସହିତ ମିଶିବା ପରେ ବହୁତ ଗ୍ରୁପରେ ମିଶିଲି। ଗ୍ରୁପ SDM ପ୍ରେସିଡେଣ୍ଟ ହେଲି, SHG ର ପ୍ରେସିଡେଣ୍ଟ ହେଲି, ମାସର ପ୍ରେସିଡେଣ୍ଟ ହେଲି, LF ର ପ୍ରେସିଡେଣ୍ଟ ହେଲି। ମୁଁ CFAR ସହିତ 2018ରୁ ସିଙ୍ଗଲ ୱିଣ୍ଡୋ 4 ମେମ୍ବର ଭାବେ ଜଡିତ ଅଛି। ଲୋକମାନେ ଲାଟିନ ଟାଙ୍କି ଯେତେବେଳେ ଜାମ୍ ହୁଏ ଜାଣିପାରନ୍ତିନି, ତାଙ୍କ ମାନଙ୍କୁ QR କୋଡ ବିଷୟରେ ବୁଝାଉ। ଆମର ଜନହିତ ବାଣୀ ବୋଲିକି ଗୋଟେ ଭଏସ ରେକର୍ଡିଂ ଥିଲା, ସେଇ ବିଷୟରେ ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ବୁଝେଇକି କେମିତି ଲାଇନ ଡ୍ରେନ ସଫା କରିବା, ଆଉ ରାସ୍ତାଘାଟ ପରିଷ୍କାର ରହିବା, ଲାଇନର ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ଥିଲେ ତାକୁ ସଲ୍ଭ କରିବା, ଆମେ ଏଇଟା ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ବୁଝାଉଥିଲୁ। ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱର ସହରର ବାଲିଆପଟା ଏକ ତଳୁଆ ଅଞ୍ଚଳ, ସେଠି ଡ୍ରେନ ଗଙ୍ଗୁଆ ନାଳ ବହି ଯାଉଛି। ବର୍ଷା ଟିକେ ହେଲେ ନାଳ ଫୁଲ ହେଇ ଘରେ ପାଣି ପଶୁଛି। ଆମେ ଧନ ଜୀବନ ଆମର ନଷ୍ଟ ହଉଛି। ଘରେ ପାଣି ପଶିଯିବା ହେତୁ ଆମର ଖାଦ୍ୟ ଆସବାବପତ୍ର ନଷ୍ଟ ହେଉଛି। ମୋର ଅଭିଜ୍ଞତା ବିଗତ ଫନି, ଫାଇଲେନ, ଅମ୍ଫାନ ଏଇସବୁ ବାତ୍ୟାର ଅବହେଳିତ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ସୁରକ୍ଷା ସ୍ଥାନକୁ ନେଇ ପହଞ୍ଚେଇଲୁ, ଖାଇବା ପିଇବା ରହିବାର ତାଙ୍କ ସୁବିଧା କରାଇଥିଲୁ। ବ୍ରହ୍ମପୁରରୁ ତେଲୁଗୁ ଲୋକ 50 ପରିବାର ଆସି ରହୁଥିଲେ ଜରିପାଲ ଟାଙ୍ଗିକି। ସେମାନେ ବାତ୍ୟା ବନ୍ୟା ସମୟରେ ପାଣି ତାଙ୍କ ଘରେ ପଶିଯିବାରୁ ସେ ଖାଇବା ପିଇବାର ବହୁତ ଅସୁବିଧା ହୁଏ। ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ଆମେ ନେଇ GGP କଲୋନୀ ଗୋଡଗୋପୀନାଥ ସ୍କୁଲରେ ଥଇଥାନ କରାଉ। ଖାଇବା ପିଇବାର ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା ୱାର୍ଡ ଅଫିସରଙ୍କ ସ୍ତରରେ କରାଇଥାଉ।
କୁମାରରେ ପାଲହର କାଦୁଆ ପାଣିଆ ହେଇକରି ବର୍ଷାରେ କାଦୁଅରେ ତିନ୍ତିକି ରହିଲେ, ଆଉ ବସ୍ତିକି ଆମ ଯାଇକରି କହିଲେ ଯାଇକି ଦାମନ୍ତି ନେଇକରି ଆମକୁ ସ୍କୁଲ ଘରେ ଖାଣ ପିଣ ଦେଇକି ରଖୁଛନ୍ତି।
ଆଜ୍ଞା, ମୁଁ ସୁଶାନ୍ତ ରେଡ୍ଡି ବାଲିଆପଟାରେ ରହୁଛି। ଏଠି ଏତେ ପାଣି ହେଇଯାଉଛି, ବର୍ଷା ହେଲେ ଆଣ୍ଠିଏ ନାଗେ ଦମନ୍ତି ନେଇକି ରଖୁଛନ୍ତି ସ୍କୁଲରେ ଖାଇବା ପିଇବା ଦେଇକି ସେଫ୍ରେ।
Thank you. The reason why we wanted to play this film before we speak about it, because this film itself reflects why communities should be involved. What is it they can do? Because what we, in all DRR programming, what we essentially have seen is that the principles of leaving no one behind and to look at marginalization are there. But do they often get translated into practice? And what Sir just said, in terms of what do we understand when we speak about gender? We are not looking at women and men only. We are looking at intersectionalities of gender. We're also looking at, persons with disabilities. You said transgender, but we are looking at diverse gender people because there are many of them who are left behind. We are even looking at sanitary workers. In the morning, the gentleman from Gujarat was talking about how communities should be involved in every level of programming. And we find that while the plans are there, what communities do not, many of the communities face the risk of lack of survival during disasters because the event is not as extreme as the lack of coping mechanisms and the lack of their involvement in major decision-making areas, major, respect for the localized knowledge which they bring with them, and their involvement in planning. And based on the experience of our work in Bhubaneswar and Jaipur, which are two very high-risk cities, and hearing from what, my colleague, from the community has shared, it is very, very important that we start from the scratch, we start working with the communities. And the first level is to generate the evidence based on what they know, and then adapt our programming to that. So we have always realized that when we make plans, we often exclude the most marginalized. So whether it is the trans persons whether it is the persons with disability, whether it is socially marginalized women from Dalit communities, they are seldom there. So this is the first step. The second step is that build their own capacities, to speak for themselves. That is what we have done. And in Damayanti's case, you can see that she has the capacity to not only speak, but to also use her agency to deal with ward officials, to deal with governments, to deal with, people who are locally providing the shelter services, or youth groups, or the slum development associations, where there are essentially men. The third is, disaster preparedness, what sir just spoke about. So disaster preparedness means that before the disaster, you use a lot of communication services. For example, my colleague from Reliance was saying that a lot of, online services. So train people to use services. What we use is something called the community radio, where early warning messages are relayed. And those messages are disseminated in the community in their own language. So somebody was speaking in the morning about collection of data and disseminating of data. So this is the kind of intervention which will help. And finally, giving the resilience a space to move up the social ladder, so that when the next level of floods come or the next level of cyclones come, they are able to have some mechanism to fall back. So creating self-help groups, or a resilience fund, what Madam has created, or something like, if you look at Bhubaneswar, there is a lot of emphasis on including persons of diverse gender in managing wash services, whether it is the fecal sludge treatment plant, whether it is the water kiosk, or the material recovery center. So because wash is a very critical element of disaster, and most of the time there is a gender exclusion in wash services. So you don't have toilets, you don't have facilities for pregnant and lactating women. So these are some of the small steps which we can practically take, so that the resilience which the communities have, the knowledge which the communities have, and the capacity which the communities have can all be captured, and we can actually, move forward. This is, and if there are any more questions specifically to what we have been doing, because I was told that there is very little time, so people can speak to us.
So we have now with us Mr. Louis Goswami, who is an experienced professional in disaster management. As the Chief Functionary and Director of Rural Volunteer Center, RVC, since 2014. His leadership has positioned RVC as a catalyst for transformative change. Emphasizing on anticipatory planning, Mr. Goswami facilitates community resilience to disasters and climate change, aligning actions with sustainable development goals. His commitment to risk-informed development is evident in pioneering initiatives such as shock-responsive Gaon Panchayat development plans. Now, taking from this, Mr. Goswami, I think this is an area, shock-responsive Gaon Panchayat plans and all, something where not many agencies are kind of, working in. Adaptive social protection and shock responsive social protection is also an area, which is now gaining prominence and all. You are already out there, you have been working in a field, and you have been working at a level, at Gram Panchayat level, where, these philosophies are yet to kind of, find a stronghold. So it's important to know from your experience, your learning is, it's quite important for us to know कि Gram Panchayat के level पे, when you are engaging with the community and on issues like shock responsive social protection and all, वहाँ पे आपकी क्या learning रही है, और मतलब if you can also comment on challenges and help us to guide through if different agencies want to kind of work on the similar thing, what would be your suggestions to them?
Thank you for providing this opportunity. Being for a very remote area of Assam, in the foothills of Arunachal Pradesh, I know Saurabhji sir has visited that area where we work, Vikrant has visited, and others, Debatita has visited, everyone. So, I have a presentation, but I would like to skip the slides, just keep on skipping. We started with response actually. And gradually we understood that response is not the end, is not the solution to the problems. When we respond in a particular manner with, please stop here. So this is the terrain where I belong to. You can see that house. In 1 hour, it has been totally deposited by sand deposition, inundation. The second slide is the down one, that is a hand pump. That is the village, and this is the terrain where we work. This hand pump has been provided by the panchayats. I'm coming to a risk informed part. These houses, the similar structures are provided under PMAY. Just the structures. And this is the terrain where it is this photo is from 12 July 2020. In the morning, it was fine. In the evening, it was fine. At 9 o'clock, it became like that. So that is the situation. And why we have so many flagship programs, but these programs are, to be very honest, with all the field experiences, these programs are not risk informed. In the context of SDG 2030 or Sendai Framework or 2030, even Assam now have this one disaster risk reduction roadmap 2030. We have everything for 2030, and now we are standing in mid of 2024 and left with only 6 years. So next slide. These are some of the situation across Northeast, the changing climate patterns. I am coming to sharing all the patterns. I am starting it for the next slide. Next. For the last 4 years, I am starting the climate patterns, mainly on the rainfall patterns. And it has been witnessed, pre-monsoon rainfall is increasing, means erratic rainfall. Post-monsoon rainfall is increasing, and monsoon rainfall is decreasing. And it is impacting everything, but the plans are not designed till now in and across that periphery, which is not at all designed. Next. These are some of the data that where we stand. So Assam stands in the context of climate vulnerability, 5th across India. So Mizoram stands 2nd, Manipur stands 5th or 6th, I think. So this is the context. Next. This is next. Next. I would not like to take more time. Next. These are some of the data that we can get anywhere. Next. 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 Previous slide. So yesterday, someone is sharing, I forgot who is sharing, very well that when we plan, it should be anticipatory. We need to anticipate what can happen tomorrow, what can happen 1 year, after 20 years, after 50 years. But our planning, when we speak about risk, what is my understanding about risk informed? So in 2019, 2019, we have a support from UNICEF to promote risk-informed Gaon Panchayat development plan. Saurabh sir knows it very well. So we have a lots of meeting and training with the community, with the panchayat members, basically with the panchayat members. Then there's a, there's a panchayat called Sile Panchayat. I will take some times to share the real-time experiences. So the panchayat president, she was a lady, very honest and noble lady. She thought that we should take it up, at least in the wash sector, as you said. She has taken it up, raised hand pump, raised toilets, everything, which is required for that area. And in 2023, the whole village has been eroded away. The anticipation in the planning process, because risk was there. And what we have done wrong that we have not met state planning. When we are promoting it, she has taken it up in a good sense, but now that area is not there. 1,250 households have migrated to other places and all the structures has been damaged. So anticipation and risk inform is very much required. Next. 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 I will come to the photos only. Yes. Yesterday, Bhanu sir had said one thing, I like it most. We want to do the postgraduate before doing graduate. Now I am just reversing you. The best university is the village university. The best university is the village university. We can graduate, postgraduate, PhD, whatever we acquire. The village university is the best university, and you can learn. Look, people know Assam mainly for two things. One is this extremism and all these things. Another is flood. And basically, my district, Dhemaji, is known for flood. Now, in the whole process, since 1988, in 1950, there was an earthquake. That is another factor. Then the construction of embankment has come. Before the construction of embankment, people used to live in a safe places. That in 1975-76, Government of India has said that floodplain zoning. Community has done it. But after the construction of the embankment, false sense of security has developed and community moved towards the embankment, that the breaches of the embankment. Embankments are made in a cycle of 25 years. So from 1988, this embankment collapsed. It has not been strengthened, it's not been heightening, nothing has done. This is a village called Medipomwa, where you see the plan. I don't know the name of the scientific name, but we call it Thol Padma. This trees, Thol Padma. We call it locally the Thol Padma, but I don't know the scientific name of the trees. So these villages, the rivers, a tributary to Brahmaputra, was approaching towards the village. Planted this tree and now no erosion is going on. And the village is protected. So I say the village university's knowledge is the base knowledge, and we need to build our development in that perspective. These two boys in Assam have not you in Dhemaji district in Assam. So many flood incidents are there, but there is no hunger death. How people are coping it? If paddy is not growing, they are moving to the horticulture. If horticulture is not doing, they're moving to the other things. Then the women's come with a lot of contribution into weaving and other sectors, and thus it follows up. We need to learn from that. These two boys, this is a real-time photo. Exactly real-time photo. I should not use this photo, but they know how to make the raft in these ages, but I don't know. Raft is a bamboo raft, we call it. And that side, that house is the house, one of the best practices in Assam, houses on raised stilts, and we call it Sanghar. The water comes, it flows down. And if it is so technically designed by the community that if the water is rising, the still can be raised. We need to capture these things. So if the PMAY houses in the riverbanks of Brahmaputra and other areas have been like this, perhaps risks from sustainable development can be ensured more. Next. Yes, this is a paddy variety. We call it Bao paddy. It grows with panika andar mein bhi 20 din tak rehta hai. It grows with the water. Again, community practices. They are practicing it. Next. Next. So these are some of the practices that we have done. We have worked with Panchayat level resource center that we want to promote. Next. This hand pump. This hand pump is a Rix Inform hand pump. Of course, the monitor is here. SAFE has supported us. This hand pump. Next. The same day photo. This I will like to explain and I will like to take 2 times. The same day for the photos. This girl is collecting water from this hand pump, and this is under the same panchayat. This girl was just going to collect the water from the river Brahmaputra. Suddenly there was an undercutting, and her body has been found after 4 days by NDRF 12 Battalion. Next. Adapt. This is what adaptation means. Replication of flood resilient hand pumps by Missing Autonomous Council. We have constructed 3 or 5. They had contracted 60. So somehow we managed to put it in the in their agenda. So I believe that it can be done if we have honestly we put it. Next. Next. Yes. Every time when there is a Gaon Panchayat development plan, every time when there is a Gaon Panchayat development plan, every time the words come is a convergence. Because to construct a Anganwadi center, they have 5 lakhs. To construct something other else, they have this much. So how the money will come? That is a challenge till now. But this whole thing is that there is a school construction is going on. The school has been eroded since 1960 for 5 times. So there was a Gaon Panchayat development plan. Myself was present there. I said that how much he will keep on shifting. Then the ADC was there, CO DDMA. He said that we will allocate the money. The Panchayat head, we will build a race platform. The education department said that we will build school buildings. With race, it becomes resilient, Rix Inform. And with support from UNICEF, we build these taxes to promote a model. So to conclude with, my thing is that until and unless this district disaster management plan and Gaon Panchayat development plan does not converge, Rix Inform development is not possible. One way, that is the same thing going on. The disaster is this way, development is this way. Why can this be converged? Putting the people at the center, until and unless putting the people in the center. Now we have so many good things now, like 15 Finance Commission recommendation to NDMA that the Panchayat should be empowered to disaster preparedness and response. Some money should be with the Deputy Commissioner immediately, then to the Panchayat so that they can actualize it. So if we think in that direction, then only Rix Inform Sustainable Development 2030. Today does not only use 2030, means we all know there is SDR, there is SDGs, all things are there. But to reach there, we need to be next. Is conversion possible? Like next, a case study, because it was in the agenda. In 2000, my last slide and my last bit. In 2019, in 2018, we promoted 6 number of child-friendly spaces. It was a support from, various support was there from UNICEF, from Save the Children. 3 schools has been washed away, we promoted. ये bamboo or tarpaulin लगा के शुरू कर दिया in a safe place. I just went to the Deputy Commissioner, ma'am, that time. I said, by the way, we have done it. I said, ma'am, we have done it. Why don't you ask your teachers to come and give 2 hours classes there? It will not ensure only education, but all the protection issues related to the children. She immediately write a letter and provided it. Then the teacher used to come. When the teacher came, then the Anganwadi used to come there to provide their services. Then the health workers used to come there. Then in 2019, I was called to there. It has been organized by UNICEF and ASDAMA. That is it possible? I say, you come and visit. They came and visit and they said that we will pilot in 2 districts in designated relief camps, not in this kind of relief camps. They came, they visited, and said, yes, we will pilot it. They have piloted in 2 districts, Dhemaji and Majuli. It was been success. The CM at that point of time, he was Sarbananda Sonowal. He gave a press statement. From the next year, it became policy. Now, anywhere there is a relief camp in Assam, there should be a child-friendly space in emergencies with women securities and all others. And this year, this Asdama is providing training to the district level officials. And this training has been provided by Radar. And I know Bikram knows this guy, Rahul De. He was facilitating the training. So that's where it's going on. Then this next slide. One second. I got another one. Previous one. Yes. This is Bal Sabha. Yesterday we are talking about Bal Sabha, means Bal Panchayat. So we say it Hisu Gaon Sabha. It has started, it has started in 2020. Then it promoted, the deputy commissioner took interest from Durga district, and it's going on. Then Panchayat has built a child-friendly spaces from their fund, allocating 4 lakhs in 1 GP. That's the starting point. Next. Yeah, this is all this next. Next. No, previous one. I would like to show previous one. Previous one. Yes, that guy, no? His name is Ratul Pao. His name is Ratul Pao. He is from one of the most vulnerable panchayat of Assam. He was part of this Gaon Sabha, Sisu Gaon Sabha, we call it. Then he presented everything, 1 second just. He presented everything in, like it has been written there, I will not repeat it. Next. Next. This is yes, so my last slide. This is flood shelter at Kortipar, Majuli. The Panchayat has built a flood shelter with all the facilities to cater the people in distress. So that is convergence, and there we need to build more because we have very limited capacity and resources, but government has this. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. Very exciting, and sorry to cut you short, but now next speaker is Vikrant. I have his bio, but I'll not dare to kind of introduce the host himself here. We all know Vikrant, right? So Vikrant, on this topic of CBDRR, reinforcing CBDRR for risk-informed sustainable development and all, my question to you is that we have seen Sphere, who earlier kind of was focusing more on humanitarian coordination and all, but in last few years we have seen that shift also kind of coming to the DRR. So and you've also been kind of engaging with a wide range of stakeholders, right, from local actors to governments at various levels and all. So so basically, how do you see that convergence in reality, basically bringing policy and practice together, how you can bring different stakeholders together on this agenda, and how we ensure that community's representation is there on all platform, right? So if you can comment on that how basically that convergence.
Thank you so much, Animesh, for weaving this session and the question. Yes, I think rightly shared. With the coming of the National Disaster Management Act itself, it ushered in the word as a paradigm shift from response to DRR. And since then, a lot been discussed on the DRR, and I think we've been part of the all possible NDMA teams. I think from the first one, to work on the policies, guidelines for community-based DRR, some of those which never came finally got concluded and came into light, I would say the way we would have wanted to see that. So that's where we have been involved at policy level part. But then I think we say that policy development and policies will keep happening. The spirit we all know, it's all about bringing everybody together on a one common platform, and then, learning from each other and keep taking the good practices ahead. So that could be the way till we continue to work with government on our advocacy to evolve the policies the way we want to see them. So that's where I think this is the journey of Sphere, and all the IAGs together here have been coming together, getting a platform of bringing everybody together, a diverse stakeholder together. I think which was initially largely developed in an NGO platform, but I think as it's evolved, it has become like a multi-stakeholder platform owned by more corporate, more academic institutions, and more and more local actors, more and more local organizations have been part of it, and also running the helm of it, which the changes we're seeing in the governance of Sphere, we are seeing the changes of other things. So that's the shift we have been. And the DRR, along with the DRR, the climate part of it, making a mainstreaming DRR and climate at part of our work, whereas the focus was the initially beginning focus was on the relief. That has also come from the global policies, the policies which we have informed globally from our local level itself. I think we're part of the policy development, that we started seeing the humanitarian development as and peace as a nexus, as a one connected part of work for the communities which Louis is sharing, or the communities, the discussion we have. For them, it's not the DRR, it's not the way we development, the way we break it. For them, it's the real issues on the ground, and for those real issues, there's a continuum, there's a connect. For our purposes, we may disintegrate them as DRR, as climate, as response. For them, it's one and the same thing. And that's what probably a connectivity we need to have it. And that's where Sphere also have a shift, to look at the nexus connecting humanitarian development, DRR, and all the pieces together in our work. And we continue to evolve that over a period of time. There have been challenges. So this is where the two things are evolving, as you have asked, and the policies connect with the ground. I like to come up with a couple of my personal experiences also, as since we're talking about community-based DRR. Largely, I've been like more of a nomad. I belong to a community of nomads who have been moving from disaster to disaster, living less in a one community. But the one community where I have a residential stake and my families are living in is an urban community in Noida. And I see the serious challenges in that community over the last 7-8 years. A high-rise community in Noida, the governance challenge, there is supposed to be a RWA and a AOA, so much involved in the local politics that a couple of people not letting, the democratic processes evolve and rotation happening. And because of which the power struggle is so much, the changes which we want to see in the community is not able to bring in, right? And then recently I got involved with the legal provision into that. Then I said, when I reach authorities, it's not this community. The person responsible for that, they call it Deputy Registrar of Societies. Hundreds of other societies in Noida, similar problems reaching him, that one person. And this the legal laws which is not allowing that happen. I spoke to Dr. Bhanu. He said, you are the chairperson of the IAG. This is something which IAG should do it. He's saying, oh, my society, we have same problem. In fact, during COVID time in my society, we received fund in my account to deal a community-based response and community-based DRR. So that's another reflection I found it. So this is happening in most of the urban communities where the laws are not allowing that to happen. And then, I looked at in and around where we live, and with some friends, I think Ilya and myself, we started Tanyak just before COVID as a founders, a trust to which we also contribute our savings and take up the works. Herein I looked at, we started responding to 3 migrant worker communities. Now, these communities in and around Noida, I think is perhaps the one of the highest level of development which the country boasts of, right? Highest GDP probably in the country. But in the Noida, we have communities, there is no water, there is no electricity, there's no sanitation. We name anything of the on the development index. So there's nothing is there. And we call them as migrant communities, but then I go to history of the people who live there. They live there decades. And then, of course, they have become migrant from somewhere else, but they're living there for decades. They are the ones who have probably made the most of the high rises and infrastructure in Noida. But they're living and deprived of all these infrastructure and all. And we started intervening in those communities. We wanted to bring in some changes, but because they live on a land which is they're renting it out, which again is don't know the status of that land. So if we bring up any initiative over there, laws will come in between that. Probably we fear the authorities may displace them from that place also. So do no harm thing comes on heavily on our mind. We're trying to get their children into school. Again, the legal laws because of this is coming up. So I feel is having been part of a policy development and guidelines on community-based DRR and all those things, the laws and the policies at a grassroots level have a different story. And probably we need to work on a lot onto that also. What Dr. Bhanu was sharing yesterday, that Gram Sabha need to meet 6 times in a year, right? Probably we need to see that, that kind of functions happen. And what Louis is saying, more funds directly to Panchayat, right? So maybe we start seeing those kind of legal, along the policy, the legal empowerment through which this registration can happen, and bringing everybody together, be it national, state, district. I think we start talking about local levels also. That could be the possible ways of dealing with it. So with this, I'll thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Vikrant. So we take few questions from audience then. Yes, ma'am.
Be a good idea to do some kind of a report card. All of us get together and, do a climate change and governance report card. And the report card can have good practices. It doesn't have to be a fault finding report card. It can be a combination of fact finding, little bit of gap and fault finding, and also, highlighting what we call resilience practices. I mean, is that something that we could devise so that this mainstreaming happens, not just at the level of administration and departments, but as we are saying, the other local bodies and agencies that play a role, in translating all of this into daily action and daily thought. And I think social cohesion is so important in climate change. If you say that, you're middle class and you have these rights and others don't have rights, it doesn't make sense to anybody, in the long run. It will, harm your own cause. You'll not only harm others, but you'll harm yourself.
Yeah, my question was to Sarabjit, but I understand he's left. So maybe the other panelists can reflect on it. One of his suggestions, which was about sitting on the edge of the circle while letting the community be participating, and also while traditionally this is an ideal situation, but with the evolving and emerging with climate change impact and disasters, the way the flood affected places facing drought, or the usual traditional knowledge is right now not working in the new scenario with climate change. So in the current situation, is it not a requirement that technical knowledge from scientists and from med department, that knowledge now combines with the traditional knowledge and they sit together and together develop, rather than being on the edge and seeing the community develop? So purely letting it be with the community with traditional knowledge may not work is what I feel, and therefore I would like to hear also what others think about it.
Since Sarabjit is not here, would you like, because you're, any one of you.
I think maybe neither with Sarabjit, not even with you, Ilya, I completely agree, though points of it. So I started seeing community. Maybe firstly, I'm reflecting on the urban community, which there is. I see that urban community is having all the components already there. There are people who are connected to scientific, there are people who are connected with the IT, and all of us living there in our own thing. That knowledge is there within the community. I think that it's a facilitation which is missing, and it is getting missing because of enabling legal framework. That's where I see the the urban community where I'm coming from. And the rural one, I let Louis say it, but there again, what Louis is saying is a village university or the community university, they know it best, right? Maybe I think what Sarabjit me to say is let them lead, think and plan their solutions, and the technology and other scientific community can come behind them to find solution instead of imposing solutions onto them. That purpose Sarabjit is saying, but maybe let's Louis further elaborate on that part.
Yeah, I agree with you and Vikrant, definitely. Uh, the community, again, I repeating the same thing, no? Like what you have said. Like in Assam, there is no starvation date. So community is doing something. Climate change, as I have presented also, it is happening. But community is coping up somehow. But I don't think it, but we need the scientific community, what we say. But I believe that they are the scientific community, but the technological commitment, the community with the technological commitment, they should with them to guide them, to process them, no, everything. And any technology that goes to the villages in this context, climate and disaster, flood or whatever it may be, it should be built on the traditional practices, not to eliminate that practice, just to build on it. Like this Changar, no? PMAY can take it. That is what I'm saying. That is, thank you.
Bamboo bridge.
Yeah, bamboo bridge, yes. Bamboo bridge. You can't reach, you cannot build bridges over so many rivers which have flash flood. But this bamboo bridge works for that 4 months. That is that where the community does this, not technological community can support the scientific community in the villages. Thank you.
I think what he meant was that what I know, you know, and what you know, I know. So basically, both sides. Basically, whatever community knowledge is there, and whatever scientific knowledge or whatever so-called technical knowledge is, it should be there should be a way to exchange and bring it together. Sitting on the edge doesn't mean that you let somebody else do everything, and sitting at the center doesn't mean that the edge is not listened to. He was talking more about listening to people and then adapting to those strategies. And I think it works because our experience in over the last 25 years has actually said that when you bring an enablement not only to the community but also to the systems who are responding, then it works together. It doesn't work if you leave either side.
Okay, we have any more questions? We'll take last two questions if that is okay.
As madam said, in Andhra Pradesh, we are working in the fishermen villages in marine fishermen villages, particularly early warning system, early warning in the situation, and also in that shelter management issues in the traditional local availability resources, integration within technologies, according to NAT Sunday framework. So it is the too important, madam. Already in Assam, like our friend, results in Andhra Pradesh also in that southern part of marine pressure for villages, but immediately relief is the food, prepared food by communities itself and by installation of the community kitchens. Food grains also gathered and collected through the maintenance of grain banking system by women. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. We take one last question from him.
Hi, this is one question throughout the discussion which we are having, because agenda especially mentioned that it is about sustainable development, factoring that community based. So one question directly to Vikranji is that we have been talking about yesterday that GPDP plays a vital important role in developing this plan of action. So although there is we have a fund provision of SDMF, in that like there is a mitigation fund. So tagging what Luigi was also telling into his experience in Assam. So can we, since you are an advocate lead in this NDMA, so why don't we tag up professional training for this GPDP through Sphere India to make a development plan through the SDMF fund? So can we think on that line? Because I think a lot of fund, we are talking about a lot of fund, 1,60,000 crores have been there with SDMF and all. But the utilization of that part has become a big question mark because we are not thinking about that utilization part. So one is that can we capacitate the GPDP members who is doing this DMA through this fund provision? One is that one. Second question is to Luigi, because like I also worked in Assam and I know the topography and everything in Kachar, what happened before and all. So one point I liked about is like you talked about that PMAY schemes on how the resilient technologies and everything can be adapted out. So in that, considering about washing institutions part, so especially on these three institutions which we cater, one is the healthcare facilities. Yesterday, madam has been talking about the importance of healthcare facility. Anganwadi center you have mentioned, and the school being one of the like relief measure place where it is happening. So the funding of these construction of these infrastructures in these institutions, there is a provision that if it is like now JJM, if we focus, there is a line in that key state can alter the technology or they can do it according to their manner. So in that, why don't we put a tag that, why don't we make it a climate or disaster resilient infrastructures? So can we advocate on that piece also to these institutions? So with there lies a lot of different departments in it, like MODWCD will be there, education will be, then health will be also, because these are the basic services which a common person will be going on first hand after post disaster. So these lines, if you can tag, because pitching it here, because a lot of things are advocated through Sphere India and ministries are there also with you guys. So just like putting the thought on the table. Thank you.
I think largely there is an agreement on both the points, right? Yeah. So yeah, so I mean, these are suggestions very well taken. I know there are other questions also in the audience, but we have a request to close this session. So those whose questions cannot be taken, maybe you can have a discussion over the lunch with some of our panelists. Thank you everyone for your time. Nupur, over to you.
Thank you so much, Animesh. So we'll break for lunch, same as yesterday. But I would like to request all of you to be back here by 2:15 p.m.